let me talk about Lecrae. Now, Dr. Rod, do you know who Lecrae is?
Yes. Are you surprised?
Normally when I talk about pop culturally things, you're like, no, I've never heard that person's music or whatever.
No, I've heard of him.
obviously Lecrae is, I don't know if he still is, but was for many years the leading Christian rap artist. He had some struggles over recent years, and he talks about that in his music and stuff like that. And he's just recently, coming back and from a journey away and everything like that. Good on him. Good on him for his battle that he's been through, because obviously he shot to major fame, and now is kind of finding he fell away a little bit, was distracted by the money, the fame, the everything like that. But now he's found himself. He's working his way back. He's working his way back. And now I don't know him personally. I don't know what he's going through or anything like that. But I saw this clip the other day that he was reacting to the Hillsong series that I actually haven't. It's on my list to watch it. I just haven't been able to find where I can watch it yet, because it's on in the States and everything like that. So it's this TV series called The Secrets of Hillsong. It's got it's Carl Lentz, kind of being interviewed through this docu-series and stuff like that. And Lecrae actually brings up this good point in reaction to this show. And he talks about the fact that there's a lot of, in churches we're chasing growth, and there's all these mega churches, and there's all these failures of moral failures of leaders, and obviously we've spoken about the issues of Hillsong and Carl Lentz before, and there's all this stuff that's going on, and he talks about in here that obviously the mega church model is it good, or is it just appearing good? Is it chasing good things, or he says, are they chasing capital growth, or are they chasing spiritual growth? And I think he has a great perspective on the way of how he presents this. So once again, all the links below. Go and watch his take. I think that he has a really good approach on what we do tend to, in churches, get caught up with the capital growth. Now, I know, Dr. Rod, when I was running the church, I did the same thing, because I'm a business coach. I was a businessman. I came from that background, that when I was running the church, it was a business, right? Like, it just went, okay, I'm going to bring my business skills into this and everything like that. Now, I don't think that I neglected the spiritual growth side of it. However, I did focus on the capital growth. And I know that peeking behind the curtain, that is a big push. It's all about numbers. It's all about size. It's, it's about growth. It's all about, all that sort of stuff. Why are churches so focused on capital growth?
Oh, well, it's news to me that they are. Oh, look, it's become fashionable to criticize large churches. I praise God for large churches, because I'm a pastor of a small church, and I can see how large churches can achieve things that my church cannot achieve, because we're simply not able to mobilize the resources. Look, Lecrae is making, I think, a valid point, and that is, we need to be very careful that we don't get carried away with the business metrics of a church. Yes. Now, look, the business metrics of a church should be focused on stewardship of all of the resources, the financial resources and the human resources and so on, that God has placed in our hands. So our focus, regardless of the size of the church, should always be on stewardship. In other words, God has chosen us to husband a set of resources, a group of people. How do we do that best? Now, part of that is looking after the financial side of things.
Mm.
We do have to be business-like without
Yes.
being a business. Now, you've really got to get inside a large church to know what drives it. And I think the key thing about church is, are people growing? You know, are people developing a greater capacity to deal with the issues of life?
Yeah.
Are people developing in their understanding of the Word of God? Are people developing a coherent worldview based on the Bible?
Yep.
Are people living a life which is consistent with what they profess in the context of their church? Those questions apply validly to large churches and small churches. And by the way, most churches are small churches. I don't see, there's not really a mega church problem as such, because most people don't belong to mega churches. In the United States, about half of the churches have fewer than 100 people in them. In Australia, I think it's around about 60%. So, and most people's experience in church is in a small church. And in fact, a very large proportion of churches are 30 or less. So they're just like an extended family.
Yeah.
Believe you me, they have issues with
Yes.
managing their financial side. I know that because I pastor a small church. It's pretty tough. It is pretty tough. It's hard sometimes not to worry about it. It's very hard sometimes not to see people as the solution to your cash problem. I
Yes.
know that. I struggle with that. But we've got to come back to this idea that God has given us resources and people to steward. You know, I've seen some programs on Hillsong, not the one that you're talking about in particular, but there's a podcast series out now, which is done in a similar fashion to the Mars Hill podcast. Here in Australia, one of the free-to-air television channels aired a special a few weeks ago, and you know, look, they managed to find people who had a negative experience with Hillsong and gave them lots of airtime. I don't know how much of what is said is true. In that particular case, I do know some of the background story, perhaps more than most people might realise. And I can tell you this, that the misdemeanours, the wrongs, if you like, were definitely not on one side. You know, there's so often two sides to a story that doesn't become apparent in media interviews and so-called exposés.
Yeah.
I would prefer to let God be the judge. You know, I've shared with you my ideas on Hillsong in the past. I think there are structural things that could have been changed, and I think they are now being attended to. I personally know pastors of Hillsong congregations. My heart goes out to them. They've had a very, very tough time, as have their people.
Yeah.
I look, the points that Lecrae was making, I think, are valid points. I just think it's unfortunate that it's kind of happening in the context of Hillsong. Hillsong has made an absolutely outstanding contribution to Christians around the world. Sure, they've got a few things wrong. And look, in terms of stewarding financial resources, I do happen to know a little bit about what has gone on behind the scenes. And Hillsong, like every growing, thriving church, has a relatively small core of business people who essentially underwrite the whole ministry.
Yeah.
I don't believe it's a biblical doctrine, but it's an empirical observation. Thriving, growing churches are well funded by people in business.
Yeah.
And I don't think a church can really grow. Look, individuals like me, we can tithe, we can make offerings over and above our tithe. That's not enough to sustain a growing, vibrant church, which is sowing into the community. And what you never hear when people criticise large churches, you never hear about the enormously good work they do in terms of the social fabric of the community. Governments are aware of the contribution that the church on the whole makes. They're aware of the contribution that even individual large churches make, and it is significant. But they do make mistakes.
Oh yeah, we all make mistakes. I think that's the thing. So I think that the question I threw out is capital growth or spiritual growth. I think we as leaders need to see both. I think that's the challenge, that it shouldn't be one or the other. Like, one shouldn't suffer at the expense of the other, because healthy things grow. We need finances to grow things, whether it be a business, whether it be a charity, whether it be a church, or like whatever it is. We need to be growing, and it needs money to, like, we need to pay the pastor, we need to pay the rent, we need to pay the electricity, we need to, like we need all those, we need to pay. There's certain things that we need to buy new microphones when the volunteers keep dropping them and breaking them, and like it's just, it needs money, and things. The thing is, I know from business, I understand, for something to grow, a lot of money needs to go into it. Like, we talk about, the digital marketing that I do with my clients. The more money they spend in marketing, the better the business is going to grow. You just need to, if you want to grow something, you need to invest money into it. That's just the way that it is. And so there does have to be a capital growth, but there also needs to be spiritual growth. And that's not just for churches. I believe us as leaders, we should see the organization that we are leading, it should be growing in capital, growing in profits, growing financially, growing with more customers, more followers, more whatever. Whatever we're leading should be growing, but also the people we're leading should be spiritually growing as well. We as leaders, it's our responsibility to mentor those people, to help them grow and help them develop develop their skill set, develop their mental health, develop, like, whatever it is that they need to be molded in. That's our point is, as leaders, is to help people become better people. They're not there to be used and abused. They should be spiritually growing as well. I think that's where this conversation falls off, is it shouldn't be one or the other. It shouldn't be capital growth or spiritual growth. It should be both. As leaders, we should be seeing and facilitating growth in both areas, to see success in whatever we're growing, whatever it is we're building. We should see capital growth as well as spiritual growth in the people that we're leading. And look, I think that the greatest way for that to happen is through discipleship. And I think that's what Lecrae is getting to, is like, sometimes these big organizations can appear from the outside to be missing that one-on-one, that small discipleship. And I believe that even the small churches and the big churches tend to have lost or missed that mark as well. And I don't believe that we are really discipling people properly. And that's why we developed our free leadership, yes, link in the description, free leadership development program, which is based all around helping you understand true discipleship, so that you can be discipled, so that you can then disciple other people. And so, I'd encourage you, go and check it out. Download the free app. It's completely free for you to join. And no, it's not upsold or anything like that. It's free all the way through. So I'm encouraging those people. Go, yes.
Can I just interrupt you? I've probably been doing that a little bit today.
It's a conversation. That's what we're meant to do.
Just in relation to the whole spiritual growth thing, I read some stats a couple of years ago that the average attender at one of the megachurches in America turns up once every 6 weeks.
Yes.
So who's the problem? The church or the person, the individual who goes? You're not going to spiritually grow spiritually, you're not going to mature if you go to church once every 6 weeks.
Yeah.
All you're really doing you're just treating it as another consumption item. If there's a good ball game on, I'm going to go to that. If it's a beautiful day, I'll go to the beach. If it's a wet day, I'll pull the blanket, the bed covers over my head, and I won't go anywhere.
Well, I'll do church online.
And look, I know of a particular very large church, one of the largest in the United States. Their average attender comes once every 3 weeks. Even if you turn up once every 3 weeks. How can you expect to grow?
No.
So I think what happens is a lot of Christians self-select. They go to a big church because they're anonymous.
Yeah.
And
Look, I'll
I
admit,
know.
I did the same. We came out of ministry, my wife and I, when we first got married. We both come out of ministry. We were kind of burnt out from years in ministry, and we just needed a break. So we went to Hillsong, so we could kind of just slip in and slip out, and just we went every week though. We went every week, but we just we did that because we just wanted to kind of hide in the dark for a season. But
you would have had
we didn't stay there.
opportunities. You would have had opportunities to join, a small group which has a much more intimate kind of relational. See, I know pastors of mega churches here in Australia, and mega churches here are generally not as big as mega churches in the United States. But man, they do everything they can to ensure that people have the opportunity for discipleship.
Yeah.
But often in the large church, because people are not attending very frequently, they don't avail themselves of that opportunity. So I'm very, very reluctant to criticise large churches. Look, in times past, and this is based mainly on American data, but in times past, someone who said, "Yep, I'm a Christian," they would go to church or church events 3 times a week. So they'd be in church on Sunday, they'd be in a Bible study class, then they'd be in something else, an outreach into the community, a food kitchen or something like that. So they'd have 3 connection points every week. Well, what kind of Christian goes to church once every 6 weeks? Come on. You haven't really engaged as a Christian. And look, I've never come across a megachurch pastor yet who doesn't desire that people would connect, and they do everything they can. But look, getting back to this whole idea of that the megachurch, they can do stuff. Honestly, look, Christmas productions, Easter productions that bring thousands and thousands of people to at least know there's such a thing as Christianity. And yes, people do respond. And if a mega church spends $1 million on a Christmas display, and 150 people say, "You know what? I want to get to know this Jesus fella." That sounds to me like a pretty good deal.
Yeah. No, I agree.
But getting back to this whole thing about, are we actually good, doing good, or are we focusing on, being seen to do good? From the pastors I know personally, mate, their heart is to do good.
Yeah.
To do good. And we just got to be so careful that we don't form our opinions based on what information is available publicly, because the truth is rarely public.
And that's why when we talk about like our mission as an organization is to eradicate poor leadership. We're talking about the behavior, not the person, because I've sat under a lot of really, really poor leadership, but they're great leaders, great people, good hearts. They have good intentions. 100%, Dr. Rod. Yeah, this is not an attack on the church. This is not an attack on the people. This is a challenge. This is a rile up for all of us, like the people attending, people not attending, the leaders. Like we need to go and be a part of it. On the theme of like do good or appear good. If you call yourself a leader and you're only turning up to church once every 3 weeks or whatever, just to appear good, you're missing the point. You're missing the point. You as a leader, you need to be discipled. You need to be a part of that community. I mean, I miss it. I like living here in the Dominican Republic. Dr. Rod's my pastor, and we speak every week. But I listen to at least one sermon a day, and do church online when I can. And I attend a church here. My wife's father is an associate pastor, and we attend his church. Now I find myself a little bit disconnected because I don't speak the language very well, so I don't understand what's happening. But I go to make sure my son is involved, and I'm there part of the community. But even just recently, I just turned around to the person that runs the youth here and I said, "Hey, look, I'm missing being involved. I want to get involved again." And so we as leaders, we have to be involved. We can't just consume. We can't just turn up to church to appear good. We also have to do good, be a part of it and allow it to invest in us. If we want to be a leader, we have to be discipled ourselves. If we want to be a good leader and disciple others, we can't disciple by ourselves, right? We have to be, use the analogy of a champagne tower, right? Like we're one of the glasses in the middle. If we're not being filled, if there's not constantly being champagne being filled at the top and overflowing, then we can't overflow to the people that we're leading as well. So we too need to be discipled. And that's part of our mission of this leadership program that we developed, is because we wanted to provide a resource to be able to help facilitate engagement. It's a resource for churches. It's a resource for pastors to be able to use to be able to engage their communities as well, because pastors they're busy. They've got a lot of other things. Like Rod said, they've got good intentions. They all want it, but they don't always have the time. They don't always have the resources, and that's why we created this app as that. But you as a leader, make sure you're involved as much as you can. Make sure you're being filled. Make sure you're being discipled, as well as discipling those people around you, to make sure you see spiritual growth as well as capital growth. Hey, you just watched an excerpt from the On the Cube Leadership Podcast. If you like that, hit the like button and put a comment below. Hey, if you want to watch more videos like this, check out our channel, and while you're there, make sure you subscribe.